Remove my placemats on my. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Make sure my volume is up. Peace and blessings, all. It's your girl, Beautiful Shalom. Welcome to my channel. Today is the 21st, Sunday. Y'all know I was up late night hours, early morning hours. Um, and this is the motivation. This is the inspiration. This is confirmation. So whether you're familiar with my channel or not, whether you watch my early morning live or not, I wanted to come back and bring a message to a mess. So last night I was pretty much venting and journaling, which is something I do a lot. I don't typically go live and do it, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the most powerful testimonies, the most powerful inspiration and motivation comes from pain. I think we encourage people the most when we're going through, right? If you sit in there and you listen to somebody who got it all together and everything is going so perfect for them, they may seem, unrelatable to you. And so a lot of times, it is very therapeutic for me. And I have found out by way of, the way people respond, that it's also helpful to them when you kind of share your trials and tribulations. So last night, early this morning, I shared my trials and tribulations. And actually, after I ended my live, the messages started again at 9 o'clock in the morning as I was getting ready for church. And let me tell you how good God is, right? I was able to go back to sleep, but when I got up, I had a little bit of heaviness in my heart. And I prayed to God, like, Lord, let me get that out of my spirit. Let me die to my ego. Let me die to my flesh. Let me die to all the all the false narratives, all the bull crap, whatever. And let me remember that I'm not the only person that has suffered. Let me remember your word, but not just your word, your promises. And let me tell you something, by the time I made it to church, I was extremely late. I didn't make it to church until 11:30. The preacher started preaching, and he came from First Peter, 2nd chapter, 9th verse. And the title of his sermon was, hello, the title of his sermon was, Remember Who You Are. And it was so crazy. And I'm going to tell you this, every single Sunday I'm in church, the sermon is for me, right? If you don't get nothing else out of life, don't always look outside yourself. The most important thing you could do is look within yourself. Look within yourself. Look at the things that make you upset and question why. Because when you understand your triggers, you're able to control them, right? Don't be a remote control. Don't let people push your buttons. Don't let people have that kind of authority and power over you. God says that we were set aside, that we are chosen. So people may try to reject you. People may try to slander you, especially when you being true to yourself and who God called for you to be. When I got in my marriage, guys, I was young. When I met my husband, I was 24 years old. I was a baby. I never had a real serious relationship. I grew in that relationship. And sometimes you can truly love someone, right? But you can outgrow them. And God bless you, Felicia Johnson. You can outgrow them. And listen, growth hurts. Why do you think they call it growing pains, right? But to be true to yourself, to not conform, to not water yourself down, to choose your faith walk, to bear your cross and follow God. I thank God that I had a reminder of who I was. It helped me to die to my flesh. It helped me to die to my ego. It helped me to tune out the noise and the bullshit that was in those messages that I knew was just meant to hurt me. And when people know the truth, when they know the love and the grace that you have given them, when they know the decency you have given them, and you stop extending that, the protections that you have given them by being silent about the things you suffered through, and you stop extending that, they get real mad. Hold on one second. cooking dinner, so I had to turn my food. And so, yeah, so that confirmation is really important. Again, that you don't seek external validation, because the same way somebody could put you on a pedestal and go from loving you, they can turn around and start hating you and despising you. And it's because you choose the value system that you have. And I think that's something that we really need to talk about, because a lot of times we get into relationships and we get into situationships, and you know, it's not a blouse, Deanna. It's pajamas. I'm in my pajamas. It's a matching top and bottom set. And it's really comfortable. Sometimes when I'm running errands, I wear it outside. I'm not even gonna hold you. But anyway, I think that's something that we need to talk about, and normalize, right? As you grow, as you mature, not in age, but as you mature mentally, right? The way you look at life, the things that you value, they should start to change. The way you think at 20 is not going to be the way you think at 30, is not going to be the way that you think at 40. And your lived experiences are going to contribute to either your growth or you being stagnant. And so for me, it was like I could choose a toxic, low vibrational love that I chose in a space of trauma, that I chose in a space of ignorance and not knowing any better. Or I can choose the enlightenment that God has bestowed upon me, and I could walk in the path that He has put in front of me. And that was a very difficult choice. When you with somebody for 15 years and you truly love them and care about them, but you know that you have an unhealthy dynamic, to choose yourself, to choose health, is so easy to stay in a messed up situation, right? And when you normalize it, you ever, have family members or friends and they just normalize being dysfunctional? You ever have that crazy cousin that be at all the family get-togethers that just be getting drunk and acting a mess, or that one person that just always messes up the holidays and they say, well, this is just how I am? That's a very dangerous mindset to have. We shouldn't normalize that. The goal should always be to be growing, right? And any and everything that we go through. And so I got confirmation this morning. I got confirmation. And the things people say and do, they're not about you. It's really about them. It's about their mindset, their perspective, and their mentality and how they show up. And I know how I want to show up. I know the way that I want my kids to see me, right? And it's not going to be based off of what I say. It's going to be based off of what I do and how I live my life. And so you can't really, cast your pearls among swine, right? You have to understand who your audience is, and who you're talking to have an effective message. And I just know, like, for me, personally too, and what I take in, right? Because your eyes are a gateway, your ears are a gateway, your mouth is a portal, the things that you say. And I always used to say this on my channel, but I live by this. What are you investing your energy in? When there's people who are at war with themselves, when there's people that don't even, hi Kelly, when there's people that don't even have self-awareness, they haven't even started to identify and understand their own trauma and triggers, you can't really be moved by what they say. It's like the word says, before you try to point out the speck in your brother's eye, you need to take out the speck in your own eye. And so it's a lot of times in life, in this world, in any space you go in, that have people where you're going to have individuals that are more judgmental. They're more focused on external things and what other people have going on, instead of focusing on themselves, And so because they go through life and move through life, finding fault and blaming everybody else and what they go through, and they don't do that shadow work, right? That shadow work. It doesn't matter how you present. Being nice does not always make you kind. Somebody could be like, oh, hey girl, you look good today. Oh, hey guy, I like your haircut. And then as soon as you walk away, be like, dirty mother effer. And they're not a genuinely kind person, right? It's just social etiquette to be nice. but you should always aspire to be kind. And the way that you can authentically be kind is by doing shadow work, right? Working on yourself, working on them ugly parts of yourself, those parts of yourself that people don't get to see, those parts of yourself that you don't even like sitting with because it's so uncomfortable. Like, damn, I said that, I thought that, I did that. And a lot of people don't like to do stuff like that. They like the guilt trip, they like the blame, they like to deflect and project. You don't really get to enlightenment being like that. You get to enlightenment, you get to healing when you start to identify what is it about me, right? And being able to understand. And this don't sound, nobody wants to say, hey, I had low self-esteem. I had low self-esteem, right? Nobody wants to say, hey, I didn't have no sense. I didn't have no sense. Nobody wants to say, hey, I trauma bonded. I trauma bonded. Nobody wants to say, hey, I wanted external validation. I wanted external validation, right? It's all these baby mamas. And I wanted my relationship with this man to feel like it meant something and that it was different. And so it was really having to do with other people and how they viewed my relationship. And it's like, you going to get married and getting a marriage license, they ain't gonna change nothing about the dynamics of what you got going on. The same problems that existed 15 years ago when I first met this man existed the day that I said I do. And you want to know something ironic? The day we got married, I had on mismatched shoes. Literally, the stuff that I packed for the hotel, along with my dress, I was in such a rush that I didn't even realize that I packed like a couple different pairs of shoes because for the dinner afterwards and everything. But the the shoes that I was supposed to wear with my actual wedding dress, I didn't pack both of them. I packed the wrong shoes. So I literally had to make it work. Thank God, like my gown was long, that walking down, and my son walked me down the aisle to his father. Our son walked me down to the aisle to his dad. But that was the craziest thing. Like, if that ain't more of an inclination that you shouldn't have got married, I walked down the aisle with a very long aisle. When I tell you it was from one end of this plaza to the other, I walked down that plaza with two mismatched shoes and nobody knew because my dress was so long, right? And then I won't forget, after we exchanged our vows and we're standing taking pictures and everything, I start laughing. I said, I got on two different pairs of shoes. If that wasn't God, we don't take heed to the signs, right? We don't. And so ending my marriage and going through the process, getting to the mindset like, this is not, what do I want? Would I rather choose to have a toxic marriage that does not speak to the woman that God has grown me into? Or do I want to try to have a forever family dynamic? Do I want to try to have a healthy co-parenting situation? Do I want to try to end this on a positive note? Because I'm doing my healing from all the things that have happened in the marriage, and try to move forward with grace, to always be the type of people that we could be at our kids' stuff together. We could celebrate our kids together. We could still have that family unit, even if we're not married. And I try with everything that I could to have that. But I realize is that, the same things that I always worried about in the beginning, they were still there, right? And so, yeah. So like I was saying, what I realized is that, I saw myself. I saw what made me gravitate to this person. I saw what made me stay with this person. When God will remove somebody away from you, and then you go take leaps and bounds. When God removes somebody out your life, and then you go run after the same thing he removed, we be signing up sometimes for suffering, because especially when you're not anchored in the Lord and you're not seeking God and the things that you do, and you're self-led. And I'm able to see all of that. I'm able to see a lot of the flaws that I had that carried me into that space, that kept me into that space. And you get to the point where you're invested in dysfunction, right? And again, we normalize it a lot. We normalize those frenemy situations. We normalize the toxic relationships, right? We normalize the toxic family dynamics. And it's like, no, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to be alone. I'd rather be alone looking at 4 blank goddamn walls. Like, I'm somebody who did time in prison, right? I did 5 years in prison. I was shoe status freaking the first like 18 to 20 months of my bid. Anytime I got in trouble, I went to shoe. I'm used to being alone. I'm perfectly fine with being alone, right? You got to have real love for self, and love for self equals standards. It equals boundaries, right? And a lot of times we don't know how to enforce our boundaries. Your boundaries is not about trying to make somebody, you can't make any human do anything, not even your children, right? You have no control over another human being. But what enforcing your boundaries looks like is, okay, the boundary is you got to call me before you come to my house, right? And this is just a hypothetical. So now you come to my house, you outside, you ringing the bell, Shalom, let me get in. I'm sorry, sweetie, no. I have a boundary. Call me first, right? And then it doesn't mean call me from the parking lot. That doesn't mean call me from your phone while you at the front door of my building. No. Respect that. And I'm telling you something, your boundaries will let you know who to keep around and who to get rid of. When people can't respect your boundaries, the things that you need to be well, the things that you need to show up in the best space and your healthiest space, that's God showing you that's somebody that's not in alignment with you. And it's okay, because everybody ain't gonna get it. Everybody ain't gonna make the cut. Everybody is not gonna like you. Everybody ain't gonna like what you putting down. And that's okay, because when you move out the people who is not in alignment with you, you make space for God to bless you with the people that's supposed to be in your life. And sometimes we want to carry old people into new seasons. But really what we do, and this is how I felt into my marriage, honestly. I said, if I try to drag this man to the places that I'm trying to go, right? If I can't hold the weight of a 200 plus pound man, 6'7" man. I can't. And that's what I found myself doing, holding the weight when it came to how I dealt, having to deal with, everything going on with the house we were in and the realtor. And it's like, I'm holding the weight. I'm holding the weight for your emotional stability. I'm holding the weight for how you show up to conflict, right? Life is hard. Yes, it's definitely going to be times where you got the whole weight for yourself and the people around you. But if I'm always holding weight because you refuse to do any work, you ain't trying to get in the gym and get no gains, right? You're not trying to elevate this and elevate this. I don't want to hold this weight all the time. Things that should be regular conversations, I don't have the bandwidth to every time, have to be in space to talk you down, talk sense into you. That should be something that you're able to do. And like, as a man, again, provisions in a safe space, emotional and intelligence, and stability, infrastructure, being able to lead. Part of being a good leader is being a good follower. A part of being a good leader is knowing who's effective at what, right? If you got so much ego that you can't be redirected, and you would just rather everybody just get pulled off the cliff just to say you leading somewhere, but you not leading nowhere into the ditch, I ain't that woman. I take motherhood more serious than anything else in my life. And when it comes to my kids and the way that I want to raise them and the standards that I have and the spirituality that I want to nurture them to have and grow into, it's non-negotiable. Those standards, they're non-negotiable. I can't be with a person who is not led by God, and they're only self-led when I want to be led by God, because you're pulling me away from my foundation, right? Because it's going to be a space where I got to choose between the Lord that I serve and this man and his flesh, right? And every day I'm attempting to die to my flesh daily, all throughout the day. So you got to really understand who you are. And when you understand who you are, you can have grace for people. You can always get back to a place of forgiveness, right? I don't hate anybody. There's a lot of people I won't fool with. They can't even say two words to me that aren't necessary, right? But I don't hate anybody. And I definitely don't hate somebody that I was married to and I spent 15 years of my life with. I went through a lot of losses, went through some gains and some losses with, and when you get to the point where you're speaking on deceased family, when you get to the point where, you see somebody like openly, publicly speaking on your family, speaking on your health, saying all kinds of crazy stuff. And I got to remember too, this from the beginning of my pregnancy with my son. I remember saying I can't wait to get my paternity test, because just a situation with people speaking on my child's paternity, specifically an ex-girlfriend of his. And it's like, you allowed this person, you gave this person access to me. I didn't know this person from a can of paint. I didn't have any problems. You got to watch how people deal with you from the beginning. You got to watch what people got going on in their life, how they parenting the kids that they have. We be so quick to get on men and women and be like, oh, you knew what you was getting into. But for all intents and purposes, we see it there, and we justify and we try to give context to shit that just is not good, right? So if a woman got kids and she half-assing with her kids, and then you go and have a baby by her, and then you mad like, oh, she this kind of baby mama, but you saw how she was with the kids she already had. God gave you insight, right? You just chose to not take heed to those signs. If a man got children and he not involved in their life, and he in and out of their life, and he could say, oh, my baby mama crazy and she this and she that, but at what point did you be like, what kind of man, for whatever reason, will walk away from his children? It gives you perspective and insight. When you young, you dumb, you don't really know a lot, right? And so you get caught up in the hype and you think you're going to be different. And God showed me I was not no different. I was not no different. And the marriage didn't make my situation any different. But marriage did not validate my children, give my children more or less than what their siblings had. They going through the same reality. And I don't say that to be nasty. I say it because it's the truth. And when we ever to speak truth to light, it goes a long way. I got confirmation through the word. It is okay, right? Remember who you are. Remember who I called you to be. And somebody who is led and moved off of self and earthly wins and gains will never understand somebody who is trying to go through the process, who's saying, Lord, whatever you got to do to prune me, whatever you got to do to stretch me. When they don't nurture their spiritual being, they're not going to understand you. And that's okay, because we weren't rejected. We were chosen. And when I say rejected, what I mean by that is like people will try to discredit you and make you feel like you're crazy because you walking in your faith walk. And that doesn't look like perfection. That absolutely doesn't look like perfection. It doesn't mean that you're going to be this person who don't never do nothing wrong. I be telling people all the time, they get all caught up at my old church. They used to be like, oh, because you know the Bible so well. You know why I know the Bible so well? Because I'm a hot mess. If it had not been for the word of God. You know why I used to know the Bible so well? Because when I be ready to go off and all my flesh and get all the smoke, I have to die to that. I have to put on the full armor of God. I have to understand the spiritual warfare. And the warfare sometimes ain't even the people running their mouth. The warfare is how I feel and how I look at the people running their mouth. Because God said they're going to run their mouth. If they question Jesus' identity, you think they ain't going to question your identity? If they attacked him, you think they ain't going to attack you? People love you until you put your foot down. People love you until you got to tell them a hard truth about how you experiencing them. Right? And so it is what it is. And this is why I run after God. Because if you only knew the things that I've been through, if you only knew the things that I survived. And so when I see a person who has always left me exposed to emotional trauma, right, at their hands, somebody who has violated me, allowed other people to violate me, sat and talked my business with folks, sat and talked my personal business, talked about my mama, my dead mama, you know what I mean, to an outsider, had them laughing. When I think about all these things, it's like, God, this wasn't, oh, woe was me. You showed me this from 15 years ago. I chose this for me. And this is why I don't be liking to make choices at 40 that don't involve God. I don't like making choices that I'm not asking God to come into, because it's very dangerous. When we get caught up in the flesh and we get caught up in being led by self, you can lead yourself into a season of heartache and heartbreak. You can end yourself in the season of being sick. I remember when I got pregnant and I used to joke with my son. I'm like, oh, you made me sick. Your sperm contaminated me. I know that sounds bad. God forgive me. But it was like a joke of mine, like, because my pregnancy was so hard. But let me tell you something. Being yoked to the wrong person will make you sick, like physically ill. Physically ill. I was ill in my marriage. I was ill the entire relationship, right? Physically. We be having all kinds of warning signs we're not supposed to be with somebody, but we don't listen to them at all. And I take responsibility for that. So I'm really excited about this season of my life, because it's like I really trust my judgment. I trust the head on my shoulders that I have now. I trust the growth from all the trials and tribulations that I've been through. I trust my spiritual discernment. I trust my ability to always invite God in, right? I trust the self-discipline that I've been able to tap into, throughout this time. I crashed out in December with my husband. And then I crashed out again April 9th at a court date with my husband. I ain't crashing out with you no more. You ain't getting that kind of energy from me. So from April 9th, September, now, I'm 5 months good on healthy engagement. And that don't mean I won't tell you what the standard is. That don't mean I won't tell you what the boundary is. That don't mean I'm not enforcing these boundaries, but I'm not going to exchange. In 2 minutes, I'm not going to exchange unhealthy energy with you. You can... My daughter be suffocating me, y'all. Like, since her dad has not been around. She's always been super affectionate, but she is like OD. Oh my God, she be like suffocating me. She be all over me. I love it. It's good for her. It's good for me. It's definitely good for me. I get so much joy from my kids and the way that they tell me that they feel about me. And how locked in we is. They know their mama coming behind them. They know. They be laughing. They say certain stuff. They know how I'm giving it up. I thank God. Epiphany, I'm doing something right now, okay? And you're about to eat, all right? I thank God that the same things that, this man, their father, tried to tear me down for, whatever. Oh, you went through trauma and, you used to try to kill yourself. But you know what? That's why I'm able to show up for my son and his friends. That's why I'm able to speak life into them. That's why I'm able to encourage them and be there for them. And it's so crazy because when I was pregnant with my son, I used to be at my aunt's house a lot because my husband was in prison. And it was like my safety plan at the end of my pregnancy because I was having a difficult time and a lot of scares, whatever. And he used to have all his friends there. And I'm like, everybody called her Mama Rose. And I was just like, I couldn't have all these kids in my house. And now I turn around and I don't have a whole bunch of kids in my house, but I find myself being that parent, right? That I'm on the phone late nights when these kids is going through a depression and posting crazy stuff, talking to them, speaking life into them, praying over them. Not too long ago, my son came home. He just wrapped his arms around me. And I'm looking all suspect, like, yeah, what's up? What you want? What you about to ask for? And he's like, I just want to let you know how much I love you and I appreciate you. And, how I could talk to you about anything and how you help me to show up and be there for other people. So don't forget who you are. Don't get caught up in what the world thinks of who you are. They will know you by your fruit, right? What kind of fruit are you producing? What kind of impact are you having on the lives that you created? What kind of impact are you having on the lives around you, right? And not a superficial impact, not, oh, well, I went and did this, that. No, deep impact, right? We're supposed to be fishers of men. That's what God called for us to do. Everybody got a calling. Your calling may not be a great platform. Your calling may not be a pulpit. Your calling is sharing your testimony and the things that God has brought you through. And he brings you through things so you can look back on the other side and help those very people that struggle with the same things that you did. So no weapon formed shall prosper. It ain't, every snap I've been through is to give the glory to God. All my flaws, all my heartaches and hardships is to give God all the glory. And I'm grateful and I'm blessed that even if I have 2 followers on here, if two people listening, I don't care if but one. Yo, my pastor said this morning, he said, I'm called to share my testimony. I'm on assignment for God. So I don't care if I don't get even but one amen. I don't care if I'm preaching in the sanctuary with no people, right? People get caught up in numbers, right? But all it takes is just one radical encounter, one person hearing your testimony, and God will drop the scales from their eyes. So today, I hope y'all receive confirmation. I hope y'all remember who the hell y'all are and step hard and proud with your chest out and head up and be who God called for you to be. Have a blessed night. Come on, boo. It's time to